In the last 12 years, I've increased my earnings every 3 to 6 months, regardless of what role I've been in, from making $19,000 a year on my first W-2 back in 2013, all the way to north of $500K in 2023. In that time, I've CEO'd a company through an acquisition north of $20 million, and I'm a partner today in the company I run called SaaS Academy. And in this video, I want to teach you the tactics that I learned very early on that created that upward mobility. It's a process that I call intrapreneurship. It's a skill that you can take tomorrow and start creating that same upward mobility in whatever position you're in. So it's important to understand that in any role, in any company, there is what is delivering value, delivering the outcome of that role, and then there's waste. It's just an inherent part of being in business. There's waste in every single role. So to be an intrapreneur, to create this upward mobility, whether it's getting raises and promotions or increasing in responsibility of the organization, you've got to find that waste and optimize the process. But the first process is just do your existing job really, really well. How do you do that? So the first step is you have to understand why your role exists. Why is it important to the company that you're working in? You know, if you're in sales, it's not just about creating more revenue. If you're in customer success, it's not just about, retaining the existing customers. You have to think through what are all of the criteria for what a good job looks like. So what I want you to do for step one is to pull out a sheet of paper or open up a notes file on your computer and start to type out what is really important about this role. Why does it exist within the greater organization? And those are going to set the constraints that we're going to problem solve against in future steps. Step two is we have to find the waste. Again, in every role, there is waste. So we've got to figure out where is there opportunity to optimize. If right now you spend 40 hours a week creating the existing outcomes you're creating, we're going to figure out a way to do that in 35, 30, or even half the time. So a few questions you can ask yourself to find the waste in your existing role. First, how are other companies doing this job? What does great look like? Find a company that inspires you, that's in the same industry that you're in or in a similar industry, and figure out what they do. How do they handle this approach? For me, early on, I benchmarked against the HubSpots and the Zendesks of the world. I thought, hey, how do they do customer success? What does their onboarding process look like? And I was able to use those processes to optimize my current role and allowed me to do the same job in half the time. So the first question is, what do other companies do? The second is, what could I stop doing altogether? Like, there is very likely work that you're doing every day that doesn't really impact or help contribute to the outcome that we identified in step one. And then finally, is there a system, a playbook, or a process that you could implement that would allow you to get similar results without putting in time? This is a concept called building leverage. We want to get the same outcome in a little amount of time as possible. So maybe there's a manual process you have right now. You can implement a software or a simple standard operating procedure that allow you to do that same process in a lot less time. And now on to step number 3. We've got to optimize the process. Most people will spot an opportunity of, hey, here's how I could do something better. And then they don't fully think through what a solution could look like. And I want you to be very careful not to do the same thing, because what will happen is if you try to change something and it doesn't work out well, you're eroding the trust that the rest of your company has in you. You're essentially making a bet. If that bet doesn't pay off, we lose some trust and belief from those around us. And key to moving up is that you want to be seen as someone who makes great decisions. So even if you don't show this next step to anyone else in the organization, it's really critical one for you to do to make sure that you're putting your effort in an area that actually creates results. There's no participation trophies in business. Regardless of how hard you work, you either make the right decision or you make the wrong one, and the results will be according to that choice. So let's make sure you're making a really good decision. Here's how you do that. I want you to go through a notes file and write out, what's the problem that I'm trying to solve? So let's use the customer success example. Maybe I'm trying to reduce the amount of time it takes me to answer questions my clients are sending. In a given week, I get 30 to 40 emails that come in, and it takes me an hour or two a day to answer those emails. We're going to write out the problem. I am trying to answer these emails in as little time as possible, or to cut the time in half. The second is, what's the desired outcome? My clients still get the answers that they need, but it takes me a lot less time. So I want you to write that piece out. Step 3 is, what are the steps that I'm going to need to make this happen? I want you to write it out step by step and include if there's any monetary cost or time costs associated with those. We're trying to build out, here's the change I'm trying to create, and here's what's going to be required to make that change. Next, I want you to think through, what assumptions are you making? And just write them out. I'm assuming that a customer would like watching a video just as much as they would like talking to me, right? So any assumptions that you're making, it's really important just to think through it. It might seem obvious to you, but going through this exercise will really help safeguard to make sure that when you do make a bet, you're going to make a good one. Next, you're going to ask what risks are associated with this and how can I offset those risks? We want to use the least amount of effort to create the most amount of outcomes. So you might say, you know what, I have a hypothesis that if I was to create these short email templates with the answers that my customers need, that I'd be able to answer emails in half the time. Let's create top 5 questions. Let's take the time to write out a really good email template, maybe create a video that answers it, walk in through the software, and then let's test it out for those 5. Don't spend 10 hours creating every single video and template that you think is possible, because there's a chance that your clients don't like responding in that way and then you wasted a whole bunch of time. So what's the minimal effective dose and how do we de-risk our investment of time and effort to make sure that it actually creates the outcome that we want? The only thing that makes a failed bet worse is when you bet a whole lot of money. So if we can bet with a little bit of time and a little bit of cash, that is a more prudent bet. All right, so let's recap the process here. The goal is do your job really, really efficiently, perform really well, and actually have time to invest in future projects. Step 1 is going to be, why does my job exist? What's important about this and how can I get that done in as little time as possible? Step 2 is find the waste. What work am I doing or time am I spending that actually doesn't create that value? And then step 3 is we're going to write out an experiment that we can run that will help us reduce that waste. I've repeated that process over the last 10 years and it's led to, number 1, a ton of learning for me personally, but it's also led to a ton of financial success. So take that mindset on Monday morning this week. I want you to think about, why does my role exist? What are the best of the best companies doing to create this outcome? Where's the waste? Maybe we write up an experiment and we say, hey, how can I get this to be better? Share that with your peers, share that with your manager, go launch that bet and repeat that cycle over and over. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below.